A captured German soldier said it best. "I cannot understand you Australians. In Poland, France, and Belgium, once the tanks got through, the soldiers took it for granted that they were beaten." He paused, then said four words that nobody in the German army had said about any enemy since the war began. "But you are like demons. The tanks break through, and your infantry still keep fighting." This is the story of how that happened, and why it changed the entire war in North Africa. April 1941. Tobruk, Libya. Rommel had just swept across North Africa in 6 weeks, the same tactics that had destroyed France in 6 weeks, Poland in 4, Denmark in 1 day. Blitzkrieg. Tanks punching through defensive lines so fast that infantry behind them had no time to regroup, no time to think, no time to do anything except surrender or run. Every army in Europe had tried to stop it. Every army in Europe had failed. Now Rommel stood outside Tobruk, and he was not concerned. He had destroyed the British 2nd Armored Division, captured 2 British generals in the open desert. The road to Egypt was open. All that remained was this one port town. He expected it to fall in 2 days. The men defending Tobruk were not the soldiers Rommel expected. The 9th Australian Division had been civilians 6 months earlier, farmers, factory workers, shearers. They had trained in Palestine and had never fired a shot in combat. They were untested, unproven, and they had no tanks of their own. What they had was a commander who understood exactly what Rommel was going to do, and had already planned how to stop it. Major General Leslie Morshead. His men called him Ming the Merciless, not with fear, with respect. On the day the 9th Division arrived at Tobruk, Morshead gathered his officers. He told them 3 things. There will be no Dunkirk here. There is to be no surrender and no retreat. And then the most important instruction of all. Do not engage the German tanks, let them pass, then destroy the infantry following behind them. That one instruction was the entire battle plan, and it worked in a way nobody, including Rommel, could have predicted. Before explaining what happened on April 14th, you need to understand what Blitzkrieg actually required to succeed. Tanks alone cannot hold ground. Tanks cannot search buildings, cannot guard prisoners, cannot occupy a town. Tanks need infantry behind them to consolidate everything the armor breaks through. Rommel's tactics depended on this combination completely. Tanks punch the hole, infantry floods through behind them, ground secured, move to the next objective. In Poland, France, and Belgium, infantry followed tanks because the defenders were already running. At Tobruk, the defenders were not running. April 11th, 1941. Rommel launched his first direct assault on Tobruk. The 5th Panzer Regiment probed the Australian perimeter around strongpoints, R-59 and R-63. 5 German tanks were destroyed before they reached the wire. The attack stopped. Rommel was surprised. He ordered a second attack on April 13th, this time with artillery preparation first. German guns hammered defensive posts, R-31 and R-32, through the night. German infantry reached the perimeter wire under cover of darkness. By early morning, they had opened a gap in the outer defenses. Rommel saw the breach and sent the tanks through immediately. The 2nd Battalion of the 5th Panzer Regiment poured into the gap at 5 a.m. on April 14th. This was the moment Rommel had been waiting for. Tanks inside the perimeter, infantry following. The same sequence that had broken every army in Europe. What happened next became a case study taught at military academies for decades afterward. The Australian infantry in the outer posts did not run. They stayed in their foxholes. They let the tanks roll over them. Some men pressed themselves into the dirt as panzers passed within meters. The ground shook. Exhaust fumes filled the trenches. And when the tanks had passed, the Australians stood up and engaged the German infantry following behind. Rifle fire, bayonets, hand-to-hand fighting in the dust. The German infantry, expecting to advance through a broken defense, walked into a wall, cut off from their armor in front, engaged from both flanks by Australians who had let the tanks through deliberately. Behind the perimeter, British 25-pounder artillery guns had been repositioned overnight. Morshead had anticipated the exact point of attack and moved his guns accordingly. The German tanks that had punched through the outer line now drove directly into a prepared artillery ambush. 2 batteries of 25-pounders opened fire at close range. then the 2nd 3rd Australian Anti-Tank Regiment, then British tanks from the 1st Royal Tank Regiment arriving from reserve. The Panzers were being hit from 3 directions simultaneously. In 20 minutes,